go ahead and get started. And today we're going to need 2 blocks and a blanket. And the first pose that we're going to start in is child's pose. And if you don't want to sit in child's pose, you don't have to. You can sit in virasana instead. We're just picking a pose where you can check in and see how you're doing. And the reason being is we're going to do this a few times, just checking in to see how you're doing, to notice what you're noticing in the body. So if you're in child's pose, figure out if you want your arms forward or if you want your arms back. If you're in virasana, see if you want to have the hands on the lap or if you want the hands just, touching the floor, whatever feels best to you. And you're just going to take 5 steady, deep breaths here. And our emphasis on today is just noticing the sensations that are present. There are different ways in which we can ground ourselves, and the first is just becoming aware of the body. So as you take these next 2 or 3 breaths here, I'd like you to just observe the body. Notice where you're feeling contact with the floor. Notice where you're feeling the movement of your breath. Great. On your next inhalation, let's go ahead and come up to hands and knees. And if you need to, you can pad your knees with the blanket at this point in time. You can also put your blocks to the upper outer corners of your mat if you need them. And then we're going to start with something that a teacher of mine has called Ganesh Mudra. So you'll inhale from crown to tail. As you exhale, your butt will come over to the right heel. You'll empty in center, and then you'll inhale and swing your hips over to the left heel and come forward back towards your hands. And then you'll exhale and reverse that, going over towards the left heel. On empty, you'll be through center. And then on your next in-breath, you'll come over to the right and back towards your hands. And then you'll repeat that about 3 more times, going over to the right as you exhale, being in center on empty, and then inhaling through the left, coming back towards your hands. And then exhaling over to the left, being empty when you hit center, and then inhaling through the right. And as you take that 2 more times on your own, you might find that you want to involve the head and the ribs a little bit more into that. You might find that you want to deepen and elongate the breath. We're paying particular attention today towards opening up the hips and opening up the low back, because a lot of stuff, emotional stuff, physical stuff, mental stuff, can reside at times in the hips and in the low back. And so after you've completed a total of 4 sets, so that's 4 times to the right and 4 times to the left, you'll bring yourself back straight through center into your child's pose, and you'll just take a moment to rest there once again. And again, once we find ourselves in child's pose this time, let's go ahead and extend our arms forward in front of us. Inhale, lift your head an inch away from the floor. And as you exhale, walk your hands all the way over to the left. With your hands going over to the left, inhale, keep the head an inch away from the floor. As you exhale, step your left hand next to your face. Start to push down into your left hand and twist your spine towards the left. And if you keep pushing down and forward with that right hand and pulling back at the same time, you'll find a crazy stretch happening on the inner upper arm. And you're just pushing down into the left hand, rotating your rib cage to the left, lifting that left shoulder away from the floor, right arm closer to the floor. On your next exhale, turn your chest more towards the floor. Inhale, walk your left hand forward, and then exhale, come back through center. Take a moment to notice what you notice between the sides. And then on your next in-breath, lift the head away from the floor. And exhale, start to walk your hands over to the right. Once your hands has gone as far away from as you As you want, you'll step the right hand underneath the right shoulder. Inhale, lift the head a little bit away from the floor, and exhale, push through the right hand to rotate to the right. And as you've got these 3 breaths here, you might find that you'll inhale and lift the spine a bit, and exhale and twist the spine a bit. And you're just paying attention to how this feels. Noticing that you can allow the head to be pretty close to the floor and just rotating through the shoulders, through the upper back. Nice job. Next, exhale, turn the spine back to the floor. Inhale, walk your right hand forward, and then exhale, come back through center. Next inhalation, let's go ahead and come up to hands and knees. As you exhale, curl the toes under, round back to a downward facing dog. Downward facing dog, yep. And then inhale, come forward, rolling through to a cow shape pose. And keeping your toes tucked under, exhale, press back to a child's pose. So little baby toe squat as you're going back to that child's pose. Yep. Inhale, come forward, back into cow shape. And exhale back to downward facing dog. And you've got this 3 more times. And you're just paying attention to how this feels as you come in and out of cow, that modified child's pose, and downward facing dog. And as best as you can, you're rolling through the spine one way and rolling through the spine the other way. Nice work. And then the next time you find yourself in downward facing dog, go ahead and pause there. And in down dog, you might choose to bend one knee and then the other, but you're going to take a moment to check in. How is the breath here? We've been moving with the breath and just trying to gain contact with the breath. And how is that feeling right here, right now? And as you feel like you're coming to an even state in the body, you'll go ahead and come to stillness. And then once again, let's go ahead and inhale down to hands and knees. As you exhale, press back to child's pose and just take a moment to check in. Notice what you notice. How's the breath now? How's the body now? How are you experiencing yourself now? Where are the thoughts? Where are the feelings? Where are the emotions? Awesome sauce. You got 2 more breath cycles here. And I want you to just really notice what you're feeling, noticing what's alive, what's alert, what's present for you. I'm hoping that after the next shape, that will all change, but we'll see. All right, let's go ahead and come forward to forearms and knees. You can either clasp the hands, you can make little fists, you can make prayer hands. It does not matter what you're doing, but I would encourage you to make sure your hands are towards the top of your mat, top of your space. Make sure your elbows are directly underneath your shoulders. And then you're going to crawl your knees backwards until you're making one long line from your head through your shoulders to your butt. Your knees are still on the floor. Your shoulders are still over your elbows. So Roberta, lift your head, shift your weight forward. Yep. And then we find ourselves suddenly in a plank. Now everyone curl your toes under. With your toes curled under, I want you to widen your inner heels away from each other. Knees are still on the floor. And then with the inner knees widening away from you, I want you to lengthen your tailbone back quite a bit. You're still pushing down through the forearms and pushing down through the elbows. And I want you to see if you can find that length through the crown of your head, through the shoulders, through the tailbone. Now we're going to stay here for 90 seconds. And so you're just going to breathe. And we spent our morning or our initial practice just finding our breath. So I want you to find your breath right here and right now. And we're just noticing that with the knees still down on the floor, you're pushing back through your inner heels. You're letting those inner heels widen. You're breathing very consciously, very deliberately, perhaps into the belly, perhaps into the low back. You're noticing that as things start to happen, maybe there's shaking, maybe there's wobbling, maybe there's none of the above, but you're just going to breathe. And we've got another 35 seconds. And so you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what's coming up. Plank is one of those fun things that I'm sure that you're only thinking about the sensations that are going on in your body. I'm sure you're not thinking about your to-do list. I'm sure you're not thinking about what you just did. I'm sure you're not thinking about anything other than when is she going to bring us out of this shape. And so you're just going to sit there and breathe for these last 10 seconds, reaching back through the legs, back through the feet. And as you take your last 2 breath cycles here, can they still be as complete and full of a breath as possible? And at the end of your next exhalation, you'll gently release out of this shape, whether that means you go back to child's pose, whether that means you do some cats or cows, you'll do whatever will help you decompress. And I want you to again check in and notice what you notice. I asked you to notice what you noticed at the very beginning of the practice. And notice what you notice now. Does something feel quieter? Does something feel more spacious? Does something feel warmer? And you've got about 10 more seconds doing whatever the heck you happen to be doing to decompress. And then, of course, as Lizzie Lassiter, well, actually, Mary Richards, who I am borrowing this exercise from, she said, all good things come in 3. So we're going to do that again. Let's go ahead and come forward. And so you're going to start yourselves back onto forearms and knees if you'd like. And I do encourage you to start with a proper setup. So shoulders are directly underneath your elbows. And then you'll start to crawl your feet back until you're making a line between your head, your shoulders, and your bum. Curl both sets of toes under. And this time I want you to play with, do you want to arch the back a little bit so that there is your natural lumbar curve? Do you want to curl your tailbone under? Your toes are still curled under and you're reaching back through the inner edges of your legs, reaching back through the feet. And I encourage you to play with how you shape your pelvis. Is your tailbone reaching back and your pubic bone reaching forward? Are you arching the back just a little bit so it retains your natural lumbar curve? Are you lifting the pelvis high? And we're just going to stay here and you're going to just breathe and you're going to notice what you notice. And we are going to do this a 3rd time. So those of you that would like to lift your legs the 3rd time, by all means, we'll give that as an option. But I did find that having the knees on the floor for some reason was drastically harder than lifting them up. And I'm not quite sure why. And so we're just going to pause and we're going to breathe and you're going to notice what you notice. Has your breath become shallow or can you let it still be long and full and deep? Can you continue to breathe into that low back, into that abdomen, loosening up the things that might be tight or constricted? And can you really just notice that right now in this moment, the only thing you're probably thinking about is plank. We've got 10 more seconds, which depending upon how you're breathing is about 3 breath cycles. And at the end of your 3rd exhalation, you'll gently come out. And whether that means you go back to child's pose, whether that means you do some cats or cows, I want you to decompress in a way that allows your body to make sense of what just happened for you. And then once you've moved, if you've been in movement, I want you to just check in and notice, what do you notice now? Do you feel more grounded? Do you feel more alert? Do you feel more present? Great. And this is going to be our 3rd one. So let's go ahead and inhale and come back to hands and knees. Now for this one, I'm going to give you variation. So if you want to do this as a regular plank, by all means do that. If you want to do a forearm plank, by all means do that, but you're choosing whatever is going to work for you. Let's start by having our hands up towards the top of our mat. And then you're going to crawl your knees back. You're going to curl both sets of toes under. And then this time you're going to lift your legs up and away from the floor. I continue to encourage you to reach back through the inner edges of your thighs, reach back through your heels. And if your hands are further forward than your shoulders, that's going to be a whole heck of a lot harder. So you modulate that for you. And then you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe. And then I want you to pay attention to your pelvis. Are you curling the tailbone back towards the heels? Are you arching the pelvis just a little bit? Are you more in neutral? And you're just paying attention to how this is impacting the sensations that you're experiencing. And I want you to notice if you're gripping in your jaw to bear through this. Can you relax your mouth while you engage the muscles of the core, while you engage the muscles of the legs? And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. How do we allow ourselves to find quiet amongst all the things that are going on in our day-to-day? Things like plank help because, they kind of force us to do it, but how can we do it in other ways where it may not need to be so intense? You've got 3 more breath cycles here. At the end of your 3rd exhalation, we will make our way back to downward facing dog. And when you get to downward facing dog, notice what you notice there. Does it feel good to be still? Do you need to move around a little bit? But you're just observing the flow of movement. And in particular, I want you to see if you can breathe into your abdomen, into your pelvis, into your low back, and just see how things feel there. Awesome. Sauce. All right, let's go ahead and come to stillness if we're in movement. Inhale, gaze to the top of your space. And as you exhale, bend your knees, empty your belly, and step or float top of space. Great. Once you're at the top of your mat, inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. And then exhale, fold in. Pause, separate your feet about hip distance apart. If you'd like, you can plant a block already there between your shin bones, or you don't need to. Great. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Bend your knees just a bit, and exhale, fold back in. And then this time we're going to hold it. Inhale, halfway lift. Press your fingers back into your shins forward into your fingers. Bend your knees just a bit so you can send your pubic bone back. And then from here, draw your hands to your hips. Slide the shoulder blades together on your back as you reach your sternum forward to your chin. Yep. And then hug the elbows towards each other on your back. On your next inhalation, start to bring your spine up to vertical. And as you exhale, push down into your pelvis, to push down into your legs, to push down into your feet as you lift up through your crown. Nice work. Next in breath, circle sweep the arms down, out, and up and overhead. As you exhale, bend your knees and sit your butt really low and down. Utkatasana, chair pose. See if you can turn your palms to face each other. Reach your pinky fingers higher. Squeeze in that block if you're using it, and then lift the sternum up just an inch. Nice job. Now bring your awareness to your pelvis. Do you want to tuck it under? Do you want to arch it back, similar to what we did in plank? On your next exhale, hands will come to heart center. Go ahead and just let this block drop. Bye-bye. Draw your right foot up, drawing your right heel towards your right butt cheek. And you're going to step your right foot all the way back for a low lunge. Great. Once that right foot is back, start to spin the right foot down and turn to face the right edge of your mat. Now adjust your feet for warrior two, seeing if you need to walk that right foot even further back, seeing if you need to adjust that left foot forward. Great. From here, bring your left forearm onto the top of your left thigh. Bring your right hand to your right hip. Pause. Just as we did before, I want you to push your right hand into your right hip, push your right hip down into your right leg. Now push your left elbow into your left thigh into your left elbow, and see if you can find space. There you go, Roberta, underneath that left side. And the more you push that left forearm down, that left thigh up, you'll find length on the left ribs. Then from there, let's reach back through the right arm. Reach your right hand up and overhead. And see if you can continue to push down through that left forearm. Turn your right palm to face the the floor, and then see if you can rotate your ribs up to face the sky. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what it feels like here. Great. On your next in-breath, turn your gaze to the floor. As you exhale, frame the front foot and come to a low lunge. Pause here. Continue to reach back through that inner right thigh, right heel. And then on your next exhale, start to straighten your front leg, shift your butt back. And then you'll inhale and come forward to that low lunge. So you've got 4 of these. If your hands want to stay on the floor, great. If your hands want to go to your blocks, great. But you're just moving in and out of this shape, and you're noticing what this feels like. And as we're going forward and back, that right leg still stays as active. So we spent time at the beginning working on that inner right thigh going back, and you're just going to notice that here. The next time both of your legs are straight, go ahead and pause. You might choose to stay there, pressing from your left sit bone down to your left big toe. You might choose to peel the sole of your left foot up and away from the floor. You might choose to spin on that heel, turning your left leg out from the top of the left hip. But you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. Great. Next in-breath, bend the front knee, shift your weight forward. As you exhale, walk your hands and blocks forward, shift your weight forward, lift your back leg parallel to the floor. Back leg parallel to the floor. Awesome. And take a moment, since our hands are still on the floor momentarily, look back at your right knee. Make sure your right knee and toes are pointing straight down. Press back through the ball of your right foot. And then on your next exhale, step that right foot to meet your left foot. Great. Feet hip distance apart. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. And then exhale, fold all the way in. One more time. This time we'll stay. Inhale, halfway lift. As you exhale, pause, slight bend in the knees. Send your pubic bone back, your sternum forward. Draw your hands to your hips. Draw your shoulder blades onto your back and reach your sternum forward once again. Yep. And on your next in-breath, stand up. As you exhale, push down into the pelvis, down into the legs, down into the feet. Inhale, circle, sweep your arms out and up and overhead. Exhale, sit low, Utkatasana, chair pose. This time I want you to press into your big toes. Imagine that you've got that block and squeeze in. Hug your outer hips in, and then see if you can lift your ribs away from your hips. Nice job. Next, exhale, hands come to heart center. Start to shift your weight forward slightly. Draw your left heel to your left butt. Yep. And then step your left leg long and back, low lunge. Nice work, guys. Keeping that front knee bent. Start to spin the back foot down to the floor for warrior two. And then notice how you need to adjust your stance so it's long and wide for you. Great. From here, let's bring the right forearm onto the top of the right thigh, left hand to the left hip. First thing, push that left hip down to the left leg down to the floor, left pinky toe down into the floor. Push right forearm down into right thigh in to right elbow. Make sure we still got a 90-degree angle in that front knee. And then from here, you'll reach out through the left hand, turn the palm to face the floor as you reach it up and over your head. And for these 3 breath cycles here, the more you can push down into that right forearm and rotate your right ribs under, your left ribs up, you'll find the ability to maybe lengthen your tailbone down to that inner left thigh and just breathe and pause. There we go. Next inhalation, turn your gaze to the floor. As you exhale, square the front foot or frame the front foot, coming to a low lunge. Hands to floor or blocks. Inhale, gaze forward, and exhale, straighten that front leg long. And you've just got 4 of these. And you're just coming in and out of this, noticing how the pelvis can stay neutral as you come forward, and it can stay neutral as you go back. Great, and I believe you have 1 more set. And then the next time you find yourself back in that modified pyramid pose, stay. You're still reaching back through that inner left thigh, letting it reach back to the sky. And then you're drawing that outer right hip back. You might continue to press from right sit bone to right big toe. You might peel the sole of the right foot up and away from the floor. You might spin on that right heel, turning from the top of the hip, top of the leg. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing how this feels. Great. Next in breath, come back through center, lower the foot to the floor. As you exhale, come to a low lunge. Start to walk your hands and or blocks forward, shift your weight forward, and float that back leg parallel to the floor. Now look back at your left knee. Make sure it's pointing straight down, toes are pointing straight down. Bend the right knee as much as you need to keep the hips square. And Barbara, lift your outer left hip up. There we go. On your next exhale, step that left foot forward to meet your right. Great. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold in. Inhale, sit, Utkatasana, chair pose. And so now we've taken out one entire shape. And so you're noticing here, can you continue to press down through the big toe mounds? Hug those inner thighs towards each other. Hug those outer hips towards each other. Lift the ribs away from the hips, the pinky fingers away from the floor. And then notice where you can soften around your neck, around your shoulders, around your jaw. Awesome. Next, exhale, hands come to heart center. Shift the weight into your left leg. Draw your right heel towards your pelvis. This time start to kick straight back and come in through warrior 3. So you'll kick straight back, the heart will go forward, the leg will go back. Nice work. As you exhale, bend the left knee, step the right foot back and come to a high crescent lunge. Yep. Pause. As you're ready, you'll spin the back foot down and you'll open to warrior 2. So we started adding in more shapes. We started very simply and we started adding in how do we remain grounded. So once you find yourself in warrior 2, what adjustments do you need to make? Great. Continue to bend into that front knee about a 90-degree angle. Push down from the right hip into that right foot. Great. Next in breath, let's straighten that front leg long. Press from left sit bone to left big toe. Start to reach out through your left hand, and this time let's bring the left hand to the top of the left shin if you can touch. If not, the hand might come to the block or the floor. Bring your right hand to your right hip. So again, push your right hip down into your right leg down into the right floor, or right foot down into the floor. Push your left hand lightly into your left shin, the left shin into the left hand. Lift the left ribs and see if you can rotate the left ribs to the right ribs on top. There we go. And then from here you might reach back through that right hand, reaching the arm up towards the sky. You might reach the arm over your head if that feels good to you, or take half of a reverse bind if that feels good to you. But you're paying attention to what allows you to continue to feel like you can open the chest, you can root down through the feet, and you can breathe deeply. Great. On your next in-breath, you'll gently turn your gaze to the floor. Everyone bring your right hand to your right hip. Bend your front knee. Reach your left hand forward and onto the floor or the block. Step forward. Lift your right leg parallel to the floor for half moon. And again, you might need to look back and make sure that that right leg is lifted in line with the right hip. And keeping the hand on the hip for a moment, squeeze the right hip a lot to lift the right heel. And then you might start to stack the right shoulder. You might start to lift the right arm. Nice work, guys. On your next exhale, turn your gaze to the floor, lower your right hand to the floor, and we'll find ourselves in standing splits once again. Square your hips. Next exhale, step the right foot forward to meet the left. Feet hip distance apart. Inhale, halfway lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold in Uttanasana. Inhale, sit, Utkatasana, chair pose. So things have started to build. We know where we're going, but can we be grounded right here? Can you push into the big toe mounds, the inner edges of your feet, soften the inner thighs to the floor, bend the knees by allowing the hips to go back, the heels to go forward. Nice job. On your next exhale, hands come to heart center. Shift your weight to the right leg. Draw your left heel towards your bum and start to kick the foot back as you reach your heart and sternum forward. Mindfully bend the right knee, step the left foot back, coming to high crescent lunge. Nice work. Pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. Nice job. Open to warrior two as you exhale. Adjust the feet as you need to. And then return back to the very beginning of the practice. How do you feel? How do we find stability once things become a little bit more challenging? It's easy to feel, or easier to feel stable in something like child's pose, but how do you feel stable when we're going through crazy transitions? Great. On your next in-breath, let's go ahead and straighten that front leg long. Push from your right sit bone to your right heel, and then reach forward through that right hand to bring the right hand to the top of the right shin, bring the left hand to the left hip. Push the left hip into the left leg into the left foot into the floor. Press the top of the right shin into your right hand. Draw the right ribs under, the left ribs on top. And then from here, you might reach back through that left hand and reach the arm up and away from the right in a 180-degree angle. You might reach the left hand alongside the ears, palm faces down, or you might take that reverse bind if you did so on the first side. But whatever you choose to do, can the chest, can the heart stay open? Can the legs still root and ground so they're pushing down and pulling in all at the same time? Nice work. Gently inhale, turn your gaze to the floor. As you exhale, bring your left hand to your left hip, bend your front knee, step your right hand forward, step forward, and then lift that left leg parallel to the floor. Now everyone squeeze your left hip a lot in order to lift your left leg parallel to the floor. You might then be able to rotate the right ribs under, the left ribs on top, and maybe float that left arm up. On your next exhale, draw your gaze to the floor, draw the left hand to the floor, square your hips. And then go ahead and step that the left foot to meet the front foot. Take a moment to pause. You might want to move around, you might be still, but you're just noticing what you notice. Okay. If you're in movement, come to stillness. Last thing, inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold in. Inhale, sit, Utkatasana, chair pose. Notice the breath and see if you can deepen the breath. If you'd like, I'd like you to squeeze your outer hips even more as you push down into your big toes a lot. Next in-breath, stand up, reach up, look up. As you exhale, open the arms out and either soften the gaze or close the eyes and just take a moment to pause. Can you feel the weight of the feet into the floor? Do you need to roll the shoulders a bit? Do you need to relax the jaw a bit? How do you allow yourself to check in? One of the things I found interesting, I've been reading a few books recently by Martha Beck, and she has this example where she asks people how they're feeling. And most of the time people are saying, they're good, they're good, they're good. And then she makes them stay in something longer. And the longer that they stay in it, they become more aware of how uncomfortable they've been the whole time. And so we just want to become more aware of what we're doing and how we're feeling. Okay, we're going to add on. Let's make sure we've got one block towards the center of our space. And you might turn it up to its highest setting or just leave it on its medium setting. We're repeating what we did last week. So from here, let's go ahead and hinge at our hips. Once you hinge forward at your hips, let's bring our right hand onto the block. Bend your knees as much as you need to make your spine parallel to the floor. Draw your left hand to the top of your sacrum or your left hip. Keeping your spine parallel to the floor, maybe slight bend in your knees, heart lifts. I want you to push down into that block with the right hand until your right armpit lifts up. And then you'll keep pushing down into the right hand so much that you can start to rotate to the left. And you're keeping your spine long, you're drawing your tailbone back, you're pushing down through the right hand, feeling a nice gentle twist in the upper back. Nice job. On your next in-breath, let's gently unwind and come back through center. And then you'll try that on the other side. So left hand to block, right hand to hip or sacrum. Lift your spine parallel to the floor first, sending your pubic bone back. Knees might need to be slightly bent. And then you'll push down into the left hand so much that the left armpit floats up. And then you'll start to rotate the chest towards the right. And you're pushing down in that left hand a lot. You'll really feel the shoulder blade engage on the back body. Nice job. Next in-breath, come back through center. As you exhale, bend both knees, plant both palms. Go ahead and step yourselves back to downward facing dog. And then you'll take a moment here to pedal around if you need to, or just be still. Great. If you're in movement, please come to stillness. Inhale, sweep your right leg up and back. As you exhale, step that right foot quietly between your hands. Spin the back foot down for warrior one, and inhale, come up for warrior one. Now, once you're up, I want you to adjust. Do you need to bend into that front knee even more? Do you need to wiggle walk the right foot slightly to the right? Do you need to draw your shoulders slightly forward of your pelvis? Do you want to interlace the hands above you and pull your ribs away from your hips? Do you need to press more into that left pinky toe and lift that inner left thigh to find a nice stretch across the front of your left hip? Do you need to draw those front ribs in and back? Do you need to soften your face and take in a deeper breath? Great. Next, exhale, frame the front foot, bringing both hands to the floor. Pause. Lower your left hand so the left heel of the hand is in line with your right toes. So walk that hand forward if you need to. Now you're going to turn both feet to the right. Draw your right hand to your right hip. So you're now on the knife edge of your back foot. Your right foot is pointing now to the right, and you're in this weird side plank position. The back leg is super long and straight, and if you need to, you might lift all 5 toes of that front foot and spin the right knee open even more. Some of you will keep that hand on the hip. Some of you will open the right arm to the sky and maybe take a little back bend, but we're just finding an openness across the chest and across the hip. Nice work. Next exhale, lower that right hand to the floor. Come back to a low lunge. Lower your back knee to the floor, and then shift your weight back to straighten your front leg long. Great. And so we're now in Ardha Hanumanasana, front leg straight, hands on blocks if you need them. And you're pulling all 5 toes of that right foot back towards you. You're pressing out through your big toe mound. You're reaching your heart and sternum forward. And you're just noticing what this feels like. Great. Next in-breath, come forward. Plant the sole of the right foot on the floor. Start to walk your hands up the front of your thigh and bring your spine up to vertical. So if your knee is sensitive, this would be a great time to perhaps pad. If not, not to worry. We're not going to be here too long. Now from here, bring your hands to heart center. Some of you will stay right here. You're going to all push down into that front foot. You're going to push down into that back knee. You're going to suck those points together. Lift your sternum into your hands. From here, you might stay here, or you might turn your rib cage to the right, finding a nice stretch across the top of your left thigh. So you're just staying vertical for the moment. You might stay here, just hugging your inner thighs towards each other. You might draw that left elbow outside of your right knee. Wherever you go, you're still pushing into that right big toe mound a lot. You're still pushing down into that left knee a lot. You're hugging those points together. If you have hooked your left elbow outside of your right knee, scoop the belly on the right side even more, and you might lift your right elbow up towards the sky in order to deepen the twist. Great. On your next inhalation, you'll gently unwind. Keep pushing into the feet. Plant your hands on the floor. Straighten the back leg long and step back, downward facing dog. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. And then we'll try the other side. Inhale, lift your left leg up and back. Exhale, step that foot quietly between your hands for warrior one. Spin the right foot to the floor, ground down through your feet, and then inhale, come up for warrior one. And then you're pausing. How do you need to adjust this position for you? Do you need to press more into the back, pinky toe? Do you need to draw your shoulders forward just a smidge? Do you need to draw your low ribs in and back, your tailbone down? Do you need to draw that outer left hip back as you keep pressing down into your big toe mound of the front foot? Maybe your hands are interlaced up and overhead and you're pulling your ribs up and away from your hips. Maybe you're not doing any of that, but you're just breathing and you're seeing how you feel. On your next exhale, hands come to the floor. Square the front foot, or rather frame the front foot. Make sure your right hand, heel of the hand is in line with your left toes. Spin to the ball of your back foot if you haven't already, and then you're going to start to turn both sets of feet towards the left. Left hand comes to left hip. So the front knee, the left knee stays bent. It's super bent. You're opening the left knee out. You're lifting the outer right hip up, and you might lift the left arm up. You might lean back just a little bit by letting your sternum come forward and your heart open. Great. Got 2 more breath cycles here. And then as you're ready, you'll gently lower that left hand to the floor, square your hips to the floor again, lower the back knee to the floor, straighten the front leg long, and shift your pelvis back for Ardha Hanumanasana. And you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe. The left leg is super engaged, the kneecap is pulling up, the hands might be on blocks if that helps you keep the chest open. Back knee is down, front foot is curling back towards you. There we go. And then on your next in-breath, let's go ahead and shift our weight forward. Plant the sole of the left foot on the floor. Curl the back toes under if you haven't, and start to walk your hands up the center of your front thigh. With the back knee down, push down into the back knee, push down into the front foot, lift up through the spine. Go ahead and draw your hands to heart center. Keep pushing down into your left foot. Keep pushing down into your right knee, squeezing those points together. Lift your sternum into your hands. And on your next exhale, start to rotate just the spine towards the left. And you can stay right here, happy as a clam. Some of you might bring that right elbow outside of the left knee. And in order to get this to happen without launching yourself out of it, you need to keep pressing into the left big toe, keep pressing into the left knee, suck those points together. And then if you have hooked the elbow, scoop the belly on the left side. Yep. And then you might lift the left elbow up a smidge so it's pointing directly to the sky. And scoop the left belly even more. Oh, look at that. Nice, Barbara. Keep pushing into that big toe and hugging the outer hips in. Great. On your next in-breath, you'll gently unwind. As you exhale, plant the palms. Go ahead and step yourselves back to downward facing dog. And then just take a moment to pause and to breathe. Great. Inhale here. At the end of your next exhale, step or float top of space. Once you get there, separate your feet outer hip distance apart or wider. Make sure your feet are still parallel. And then you're going to bend your knees and sit for Malasana. So knees tracking over toes, hands come to heart center. And I want you to see if your legs can still remain parallel. So mama to be, that might not happen, but the rest of us, let's see if our legs can stay pretty parallel. And I want you to push down into your feet until you feel your pelvic floor tone and lift your pelvis up a little bit, and then push the hands into each other, lifting the sternum up. Great. Awesome. As you're ready, you're going to release your hands back behind you to the floor, lower your pelvis to the floor. All right. A few crazy hip things that we've never done as a group, so we'll see how this goes. Let's go ahead and extend our right leg out to the right. Keep that left foot in that Malasana shape. So our knee and our toe are still in alignment with each other and maybe slightly out to our left. Then bring the left hand inside of the left foot, the right hand back behind the right leg. The right foot is pretty active, so the toes are pulling to the knee is pulling up to the hip. Push down through your arms to lift your spine, and then we're going to see if we can just rotate our chest over towards that right leg. You're pushing your left elbow against the inside edge of the left thigh. You're hugging that left thigh in towards that left shoulder. And we're just trying to find a little stretch both on the inside edge of that right adductor inner thigh muscle, as well as you might be feeling this in your pelvis. So please pay attention to that and breathe. And then on your next in-breath, we're going to gently unwind. We can just go ahead and release that left leg out. So we're in Upavista Konasana. And then we're going to try that on the other side. So you'll bend your right knee in. You want to make sure right knee is in line with right toes. Right hand comes to the inside edge of right leg. Left hand comes to the outside edge of left leg. Check in with that left foot, making sure toes are pulling back towards the knee is pulling back towards the hip. Push down through your fingertips to lift up through your spine, and then start to rotate towards that left leg. You're pressing the right arm against the right thigh into the right arm. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. Great. On your next inhalation, gently unwind and come back through center. Extend that right leg out to the right. And so now we're in Upavista and we're going to stay here for a moment. Please make sure you have both of your blocks somewhere easily accessible to you. I have pretty long arms, so it's easy for me to touch the floor without it becoming an issue, but that might become an issue. Okay, so we're going to do one more twist that's just for our pelvis before we try to go into Agni Sambhasana. So bend your your left knee. Draw your left heel in towards your pelvis, and then you're going to bend your right knee once again. Let's take the right heel back behind you. So we've got Ardha Virasana happening in the right leg, and we've got Ardha Janu Shirshasana happening in the left leg. Our blocks are here in case we need them, but you're going to bring your right hand forward, your left hand back. I want you to keep rooting down on that right hip. So just as we did at the beginning, you might want to actually hold your right thigh down so it doesn't go with you, but we can imagine it. Otherwise, we'll inhale and lift up, and as you exhale, we'll rotate towards that left leg. And as you rotate to the left leg, notice if you need to release any tension in the left hand. Notice if you need to release any tension in the left shoulder. Keep rooting down into that right hip. And then you might take your gaze over your front shoulder, your right shoulder. And this is just a twist to help the pelvis so that once we get to Agni Sambhasana, your legs have done everything they need to do to feel okay. Great. As you're ready, you'll gently unwind the head if you took the head into the twist. Unwind the spine. Come back to Upavista very mindfully. So you're going to unbend the right leg, unbend the left leg, and come back out into that wide straddle position. And then we'll go ahead and try all that on the other side. So we'll start by bending the right knee, drawing the right heel close to the pelvis. And then bend the left knee. Grab the left heel, bring the left heel back behind you. So now we've got Ardha Virasana happening in that left leg, Ardha Janu Shirshasana happening in the right leg. The blocks are here if your hands don't easily touch the floor, but I want you to really root down into that left hip, but lift up through your spine. And then we'll exhale, start to rotate our rib cage towards the right knee. And you can stay happily there as a clam. You might take your gaze over that front shoulder. And we're just focusing on rooting that left hip, really, really rooting that left hip as we rotate through the pelvis. As you rotate through the rib cage, and as you rotate through the spine. Great. On your next inhalation, you'll gently take the head out of the twist. Unwind the spine and come back through center. Go ahead and extend both legs long for a moment. And we'll just pause there in Upavista Konasana. Okay, at this point, I would encourage you to sit on a blanket, most of us. And then we're just going to take Agni Sambhasana and see how it works today. So we're going to start with our left shin down and forward and our right shin on top of it. So fire log pose. And then we'll see if we need to push down through our hands, lift our butt up and slide our butt a little bit to the left. And we want to just see that both of our sit bones are rooted on the floor. And for some of us, we're just going to stay right here. Some of us might start to lean forward, putting just a small amount of pressure, like almost a feather's amount of pressure into that right shin bone that's on top in order to feel more stuff happening in our outer left hip. And you're just going to pause and you're going to breathe there, keeping the spine super long and straight. And you're just pausing. And some of you can go further than that, but we're trying to just be very mindful of what's happening. And we've got 3 more breath cycles here. Make sure that right ankle is outside of, or rather on top of the left thigh. Right foot is dangling outside of that left thigh. Yep. And some of you will hang out right here for the next one. Some of you will come out of the shape just slightly. You'll bring your right hand to the inside edge of your right foot. You'll bring your left hand to the floor outside of your left hip. So we're going back into that crazy twist we just did. And if you're doing that, you're pulling your right hand back onto your right foot. You're lifting up through the spine, and you're just rotating your rib cage a little bit towards the left. And again, the emphasis is on rooting that outer right hip to the floor, on lifting up through the spine and just breathing deeply across the belly, across the back, across the hip. Great. And if you're happy there, some of you will stay there. Some of you will have the mobility to slide that right elbow to the sole of your right foot, but you're not doing that if that's going to cause any compression or anything that doesn't feel so good. Yep. And then if you've done that, it's just like that rotation that we took when you were in Anjaneyasana. You might stack the left hand on top of the right and rotate even more. But you're just paying attention to what feels good to you. So yeah, Julie, focus on stabilizing. You've got a lot of mobility, but focus on stabilizing. There you go. Yep. And then very mindfully, you're going to come out of this shape. If you were in the twist, unwind. And then we're all going to gently come out of this shape. So you might need to just shift your weight back to your hands, bring the sole of the left foot to the floor, bring the sole of the right foot to the floor, and then extend both legs long for a moment and just see how that feels to be in Dandasana. You might want to circle the ankles or not. And then as we're ready, we'll go ahead and try the other side. So right shin bone will come to the floor. Left shin bone will stack on top of right. And then you might need to lift your pelvis by Jenny and shift your hips up and over towards the right just a smidge. And you might just stay happily here. You might start to shift your weight forward, putting a small amount of pressure, and like literally it's not a lot, into that left shin bone, just enough so you start to feel stuff happening in your outer left hip. And you might happily stay here and just continue to breathe. Some of you will be able to go even further than that forward, but we want to make sure that that left foot is outside of that right knee and the foot is super active. If you'd like, you'll come out of this shape just a little bit. You'll bring your left hand to the sole or the heel of the left foot. You'll pull the left hand into the left heel, push the left heel into the hand, and start to rotate to the right. And then you might just stay there, feeling a nice bit of stretch, of opening as you twist. Some of you will stay happily there, just breathing, lifting up through the sternum, keeping the heart open, the head lifted. Some of you might slide that left elbow into the sole of your left foot. Yep. And just as we started with, so there's that inhale of lengthening the spine and the exhale to deepen the twist. That's all you're doing here, even if it's super small and barely noticeable to anybody but you. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. Great. You got 2 more breath cycles here. At the end of your next exhalation, you'll mindfully come out of this shape. So if you were in the twist, unwind. Everyone might bring their hands back behind them in order to lift the right foot up and plant the left foot on the floor. And then the last shape that we'll take, you'll have 2 options to choose which one you want to do. So sometimes it feels pretty good to just take Sukhasana, and then you just lean forward and grab your right wrist. Sometimes that just doesn't feel so good, and so you would just lean forward in Paschimottanasana and grab your right wrist. So you pick which one feels better to you. Either legs straight or in cross-legged position, and wherever you go, if you can, let your head rest on the floor or a block. So if you need a floor or the block, please plant that underneath your forehead. And you're just trying to release the weight of the thighs. You're trying to open up the backs of the hips, the backs of the legs. Great, and you just have about 3 more breath cycles here. And at the end of your third exhalation, you'll gently release your right wrist, and then you'll gently come back up to vertical. At this point in time, I do encourage you to cover your bodies with with socks, sweaters, blankets, and you're going to make your way back to Shavasana. And so if there's anything else you feel like you need to do before you rest in Shavasana, by all means do that, but that's where we're headed. Oh my God, Barbara, I just realized that's a heated blanket. That's amazing. Oh, maybe it's not a heated blanket. Okay. That's a great idea for Shavasana. I've been doing a weighted blanket lately, and that just feels really nice. Um, and so you're just allowing yourself to make your way back to your final resting pose. And whichever shape you may have chosen for today, I want you to make sure it's one where you feel stable, one where you feel really nurtured and grounded. And so as you take the first few breaths in this shape, I encourage you to really take the time to settle in, to fidget if you feel like you need to fidget, so that you can be stable, so that you can be grounded. And then we'll take just a big breath in through the nose and an audible exhale out of your mouth. And if that felt nice, you might do 2 more on your own. But you're just allowing yourself to start to settle, to start to fall into the support beneath you. And as we continue to rest here, can you allow every exhalation to allow you to relax, to drop, to soften just 1% more? So every time the body breathes out, you just let go a little bit more. Every time the body breathes in, you retain that sense of ease. So every time the body breathes out, you soften 1% more. And every time the body breathes in, you retain that space, that ease, that gentleness. You'll continue on your own, and I'll let you know when it's time to come out. Return your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just take a moment to check in. If there's any part of you that longs to linger in this shape, by all means, just hang out here. When you are ready to move on, you'll allow gentle movement to re-enter into your physical form. And staying in that quiet space, you'll gently make your way over to your right side. You'll pause for just a couple breaths. And then very sweetly, you'll roll your chest more towards the floor. Press into your left hand to bring your spine up to vertical. And when you are vertical, please take the opportunity to sit well, to elevate your pelvis on a block or on a blanket. And when the pelvis is situated and the spine feels situated, we're going to do 3 rounds of Nadi Shodhana with a kumbhaka. A kumbhaka is just a retention. The emphasis is to never do it until it strains, but just so it's sustainable and still effortless. So you'll take your left hand, tuck your index finger into your thumb, and either let that palm face down or face up on your left thigh. Your right hand will come towards your face. The thumb will rest on the right nostril. The ring finger and pinky finger will rest on the left nostril. Index and middle finger either on forehead or curled under. Gently exhale all the breath from your mouth. When you need to, close your left nostril. Just inhale through your right. At the top of your inhalation, you'll close your left nostril. You'll hold the breath as long as is comfortable. And then you'll gently exhale out just through the right nostril. At the end of the exhalation, you'll be on empty. Again, when you need to, you'll slowly draw the breath back in through your right nostril. Top of your inhalation, you'll close your right nostril, hold the breath as long as is comfortable. And then when you need to, you'll gently and slowly exhale out through the left, holding the breath out on empty as long as is comfortable. And you'll repeat that 2 more times on your own. And really, as long as you're comfortable is the most important part of this. The retention doesn't need to be longer than 1 or 2 beats. It doesn't serve any purpose if it's longer than that and you're straining. So you're just trying to do it as long as is comfortable. And after your 3rd exhalation, through that left nostril, after that retention out, you'll simply lower your right hand and sit as tall as you can. And I want you to just notice what you notice. Kaira stira is what my teacher calls it. It's this being in a still, quiet space. And so you'll just take 2 or 3 breaths here, having had the opportunity to connect a bit with it, a bit with that inner essence that reveals who you are and what purpose you're intended to serve. Okay. Gently draw your hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. Press your palms into each other. Receive the weight of your thumbs into your sternum and lift your sternum towards your thumbs. Gently exhale all the breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. To that light, to that breath, and to that stillness, we bow. Namaste.